Aloha, my name is Cynthia Cullen Sotelho. I am a Konohiki. I am reading from University of Northern Iowa. Hawaii pleads for statehood. Author Walter Matheson. Source The North American Review. This is part 2. Okay. The subcommittee on territories meeting at the Senate chambers of Iolani Palace, the Capitol building of Hawaii, cocked antipathetic ears to Hawaii's statehood plea in 1935. Why? Surf riders battling the combers off Waikiki Beach thrilled the congressmen. So did the hula dancers and the business of eating poi and pit and fish cooked in underground ovens. The mighty minds of Washington had been delighted with everything, but they had seen too many Japanese. Not only had they seen Japanese, but they had heard a lot of adverse criticism about them. That they were all spies, working as servants on the army posts and at the navy bases. That the Emperor of Japan had secretly enrolled them as members of an army which, at the word of alarm, would seize the islands. That those who were not employed at Army Navy posts were equipped to poison the water supply and do other dastardly deeds, including the disemboweling of all non-Japanese. The congressmen sailed back to the American mainland and reported thumbs down on statehood for Hawaii. Meanwhile, the city of Los Angeles thought it had a solution. If Hawaii wanted to become a part of the United States, the simplest thing to do was to incorporate it as part of the city of Los Angeles. That city, which had just succeeded in becoming a seaport by the expedient of annexing San Pedro, 40 odd miles away, and which already included some vast desert stretches, was then advertising itself as the biggest city in the world. The inclusion of Hawaii, 2,100 miles away, would the Los Angeles thought add considerably to its tourist bureau promotion list, which could include Waikiki Beach, fronting volcanoes, the prospect of skiing down Mauna Loa, 13,675 feet, the 11th highest peak in the world, into the tropical plains and surfboard riding of treacherous Queens Beach. But Hawaii was unimpressed by the Los Angeles invitation. It had distinctions of its own. Honolulu is geographically the biggest city in the world. Midway Island, 1,000 miles westward, being incorporated within the city and county of Honolulu, Hawaii, rejected the California offer with few thanks. It wanted to become a state. On June 9, 1938, Delegate Samuel Walter King introduced a bill in Congress to enable the people of Hawaii to enact a constitution, form a state government, and to be admitted into the Union on the equal footing with the original states. In August 1937, both the House and Senate adopted a resolution for the appointment of a committee of 12 senators and 12 representatives to conduct a comprehensive study of statehood and other subjects relating to the welfare of Hawaii. They found the territory to be a modern unit of the American Commonwealth with a political, social, and economic structure of the highest type. 67 witnesses, the majority of whom favored statehood, testified. Due to the strategic location of Hawaii, the islands are of prime importance from a military standpoint, and as they are well fortified, a hostile country could not capture them except at the very highest expense. The Army is building its forces up to a strength of 25,000 officers and men, while the naval force consists of approximately 4,000 officers and enlisted personnel. It costs annually about 35 million to maintain the defenses of Hawaii. It was a Japanese question, again, that arose in course of the hearings on statehood. Those opposing the idea citing the fact that the Japanese would probably be a menace to the safety of the country where it was reported they were ready to organize their own army and conduct an internal war at the back door of the forts themselves. Testifying in favor of statehood and terming the Japanese menace absurd, Louis S. Kane, Superintendent of Public Works of the territory, summed up the Japanese problem thus. In these discussions, the word Japan is not commonly used, but it is such common knowledge that we might as well use it. There is no other Oriental power which would have sufficient strength even to dream of such a thing. I would like to discuss a rather divergent, but what I consider a practical view of that question. Japan is the only major power not Caucasian. Now, Japan has suffered from race prejudice and discrimination more than any other power. She knows what it is too well. She knows better than we do the futility of even so much as considering occupying the west coast of the United States and running it as a colony of Japan. It would be too impractical. It would not work. She knows that better than we do, too. And the islands themselves are not worth the major conflict their conquest would precipitate. I am urging the temperance of the military hysteria over fear of attack by Japan on these islands. I am contented the great numbers of us here have no fear of secret and organized societies of Japanese whose object is to rise up and take the islands for Japan. We who live here and know these people have no fear on the question of dual citizenry of the Americans of Japanese ancestry. I have never heard any question raised as to the dual citizenship of British, French, or certain other nationalities. The discussions of Japanese in the islands recalled an interesting historical fact that in 1881, King Kalakaua, on a voyage around the world, was the guest of the Emperor Mutsuhito. In the course of a secret interview, a matrimonial alliance between the Japanese imperial family and the royal Hawaiian family was proposed, and the king suggested that his niece, Princess Kaiulani, and heir to the throne, would wed in the Japanese house. At that time, Princess Kaiulani was only 6 years old, and the Japanese prince whom the king had in mind was a youth of 15 and a student at a Japanese naval academy. The Japanese emperor declined the proposition so as not to aid in any scheme which might impair the sphere of American influence over Hawaii. At that time, King Kalakaua was fearful regarding the future of his kingdom in the face of increasing Occidental population. The Japanese problem in the discussions on statehood was brought up again with regard to the loyalty of the Japanese should the United States become involved in a war. It was pointed out that during the World War, the Japanese flocked to enlist into the American Army, none of them waiting for the draft and none of them claiming exemption, although nearly all were heads of large families. Not all of the Japanese were accepted, but out of the total of 11,000 non-citizen Japanese and 596 Hawaii-born Japanese who volunteered to enlist, a company was formed of the 1st Regiment of the Hawaiian National Guards and was the first Japanese military unit under the American flag. In October 1917, typhoid germs were discovered in the water supply and Honolulu authorities requested the governor to place guards around the reservoirs. It was a Japanese company that was called upon for this duty, probably the first American activity in the World War. The Japanese further showed their patriotism toward their adopted country when they oversubscribed all 5 issues of Liberty loans, amounting to approximately $20 million. The question of Japanese patriotism toward the United States in the event of a war with Japan has fortunately never had to be tested. At the general election in Hawaii in 1940, a plebiscite will probably be held on the statehood question. What the vote will be is certain. What the United States will do about it remains to be seen. The Hawaiians will be satisfied if we practice toward them the democracy we preach at home. Is that it? Aloha.